In today's video, I'm doing a street photography Q&A. I asked on social media last week for some questions, and people came through with some difficult to answer ones that I haven't thought deeply about. So we're going to see, and I am going to try and do this video in one take. I already did one take that was too many cuts, and I don't want to deal with that because I've got this Fujifilm X-E4 to try and do a review of this week before I have to send it back, and I want to get that done. Alright, so I'm going to start off with the Instagram questions. Where are they? Here we go. Alright, the first question I got, first three questions actually, from Joe-tographer on Instagram. Best lens you've used on any system? Best lens for work has been the Canon 24-70 f2.8 version 2 that I'm filming this on just now. There's probably sharper, I think the newer version's probably sharper now or whatever, but absolutely fantastic lens. Does a bit of everything pretty bloody well, very reliable, and it's definitely a go-to for, you know, if I just needed one general lens to cover everything. Best lens I've used for personal work, for what I enjoy. I don't think this would be the best for most people, but I like this 35mm f2.5 color scope from Voigtlander. It is the smallest lens that I've ever had, I think, that's on an interchangeable camera. It is sharp, it vignettes a bit, but it's correctable. It vignettes quite a lot, to be honest, but it's correctable in Lightroom. And it's small. I like the manual focus design. I like the way the aperture thing is, and probably my favourite lens. I've never had a real Leica lens either though, so if I had a Summicron, I would probably say that was my favourite. The best, Joe also asked the best city I've been to for street photography, and it's very cliche, but New York City. I haven't been to that many cities to shoot street photography in, to be fair, but New York, I just say that because basically 7 days a week you can go out and find something interesting. You can find crowded places, interesting corners. Something different is always available, and you could probably shoot your whole life in New York and not cover nearly as much as and not like see everything. I would imagine it's wild. But then one weekend a year, I would rather be in Colorado Springs than anywhere else because of the balloon festival. Okay, Joe also asked the best unknown or lesser known street photography accounts, Instagram and YouTube. Instagram, off the top of my head, I don't know who's unknown or not. I'd follow a bunch of people. Oh, tell you what, Instagram, here's one, a guy called Paul Harrison from London. Hasn't been doing street photography that long, has actually grown his Instagram bigger than mine, but has become kind of a connoisseur, is a good street photographer, and I would say is a bit lesser known in the community, considering he's only been at it for, I guess it's nearly 2 years, since 2020 he started. On YouTube, I recently found, someone linked this channel called Walk Like Alice. And it's a couple that are street photographers, and they occasionally make these videos, and they're very good street photographers, and it's good to watch their channel. So they're from somewhere in the south of England as well. So Walk Like Alice, check that one out. All right, M. Lee Hinman. Favorite place to get prints? All the prints that you may have seen in the story that I made to ask for questions for this video. In the background, I had my wall of prints, and they're all from Shutterfly. They're just little 4x6s. If you turn off their auto enhance, the prints are actually really cheap and they're decent. They look good. I haven't ordered from that many like high-end fine art places yet. I did order from Whitewall one time, and it was fine, but their packaging sucked, and they had to send out a replacement, and it still kind of sucked. So I didn't use Whitewall again. But they do a lot of fine art stuff, and MPEX for bigger prints are also very good. But I think if you're looking for like that real proper fine art gallery stuff, find a local printer near you and probably use them rather than ordering online. Lewis Chapman, 93, says, what's it like doing street photography in the USA compared to the UK? Lewis, I've never shot street photography in the UK, so I don't know, mate. I've no idea. I think in many ways it will be fairly similar. If you're in a big city like London, I think generally people will have a similar attitude to if you're in a place like New York. And if you're in a smaller town, people will notice you more and they'll look at you more, and that's something you'll have to deal with, and you have to deal with that in America as well. All right, Home Alone photos. This was an old friend from primary school. If you could go back to any era, what photographer would you like to walk the streets with? There are many. It's kind of hard to pick, but I would really like to walk the streets with Martin Parr in the 90s or early 2000s and just see how he works, because his pictures are extremely unique and interesting, and I would just love to know the interactions that he has with people, and especially knowing that he shoots with a large Canon camera with a flash on it. I just want to know how he talks to people and gains the access, and I just want to see that. It seems like it'd be a spectacle. All right, Chris Humphrey's photo. When shooting in a city like New York that's known for street, do you put more pressure on yourself? I did when I was there, but I knew I was only there for 3 days, and I don't know when, if ever, I'll be back or have the opportunity to go back to New York just to shoot street photography and concentrate on that. So I put pressure on myself to get something that I liked. And I'd left the GoPro running as long as I could and didn't think too much about making a video. I was just looking for shots the whole time. So yes. But however, if I was to live there for any length of time and was constantly within it, I think the pressure would come off a bit, and you could just, make it part of your daily routine. Muaz Osman, I hope I pronounced your name right, mate. Fishing techniques, tips and tricks. I made a video about this one time. If I remember, I'll link it up in the corner. And it was kind of general thing. There was some fishing techniques in there. But when I'm standing in a corner somewhere, find a good light, I try and lean against something, try and look casual, make myself there for a while to the point where I'm comfortable there and people are more walking into my space. And, maybe holding the camera up if I know the frame that I'm looking for. And I might just pretend, that I'm looking at the camera, or tilt it down, pretend I'm fiddling with something, but always be ready to flip up and take that shot when things arrive. I think that's probably the easiest way to start the fishing technique. Otherwise, you could be on the corner and moving around to catch people from different directions. I think you're in New York, right? So yeah, if you're on a corner, stand there for a long time, and you'll probably be able to move. Especially if it's a busy corner in New York, you'll probably be able to move around a little bit. Look beyond people that are coming towards you and let them get into your frame, and then take the picture. I think if you walk around Manhattan enough, you'll start to see street photographers on different corners, and you could probably learn a little bit from them doing that as well. Lee Thurkelson, due to the saturation of street photography, has the message of what street photography is been lost? Man, that is, you ask deep questions, Lee, and I do appreciate that. It makes me think long and hard about this kind of stuff, and I think the message of street photography or of what it is could be lost if you attach something different to that yourself. Some old street photographers didn't really call it street photography. Like Gary Winogrand didn't even like the name street photography. So to him, to someone like him, it might not be lost because he doesn't see that there is a message to street photography anyways. And then there's other people that I think, I can't remember the name of them now, but I know that there's street photographers out there that say this is not street photography if it's done with a long lens, if it's not, candid pictures of people in public places. That's a simple definition of it. And, it should be done with a 35 or a 28 or something wider like that. And, they have a very, very strict feeling of what it should be. I hope yes, it is recording. And so for that type of person, they might see the messages being lost. And then there might be another person who doesn't spend any time on Instagram, and they are just within the street photography world and they have connections, and to them it's probably not lost at all because they don't see any of the online work that we see. So yes and no, I think. I don't know. I tend to just follow the work that I like and stick around that. And, if there's a bigger market, there probably is a bigger market out there for those like TikTok style street photographers that are, asking for portraits and doing pose portraits in public and stuff like that. And they're still calling that street photography. And ultimately, if that's what it becomes, that's what it becomes. But the niche market of people like ourselves will probably still be around, and it can still be street photography in our niche. I don't know. I'm getting a little bit lost in that. The answers I really don't know. I hope not. I hope it stays relevant and I hope it gets bigger and more popular or something, because I think it's fun. I like it. Alright, that is it for all the Instagram questions, I think. Hopefully I didn't miss any. I'm going to find the YouTube ones. Alright, King Kevin, how do you make good pictures in boring cities and street photography training methods for beginners? So a while ago, at the start of the pandemic, I made a video about taking pictures in boring places, which was just the neighborhood that I lived in on the edge of Philadelphia. And it was just the same route I walked every day for 2 years or 3 years that I was there with the dog. And I just started to observe the light and try to find compositions and details and things like that changed over time in the same neighborhood. And once I figured out how to do that, it really helped to sort of push my photography to what I think is better than what I used to be. So yeah, if you're in a boring city or a boring location, I think it's just a case of figuring out what an outsider might find interesting. If it's a bunch of like empty fields or cows or just like an industrial estate somewhere with just, sprawling factory buildings, I don't know, anything random like that, it's going to be looking for an interesting composition within that. You might not always have people, and that's probably just something you have to accept. If you're looking for people, make a calendar of all the events that are happening in your town or near you or anything like that, and go to the events and photograph there. And that's probably the best way to start making pictures in boring cities. And this links to your second question, but you truly just have to shoot a lot, practice, make tons of bad pictures, and gradually good ones will come out of it if you don't stop and keep trying different things and keep learning. And things will start to fall into place. Even if you're just shooting with your phone or you get a little point and shoot camera, you don't have to start carrying around full frame gear or anything like that. Just get something simple, a little Canon GX7 or whatever the heck they're called, G7X. Basic point and shoot cameras will do the job if you're just on your day-to-day walkabout, driving or whatever, and you can still make good pictures with those types of cameras. Hopefully that helps. All right, I've got a whole bunch of questions from Fresh Out of Focus. That's his Instagram handle. Do you feel that stealthy shooting gives you an advantage in the types of shooting that you do? I don't think stealthy shooting gives any advantage to the types of shooting that I do. I think I lean towards smaller cameras and quieter things that are considered stealthy because it makes me internally feel more comfortable and less conspicuous. That might not be the case, but it makes me feel it, and in feeling better about it makes me more, I guess gives me an advantage in that sense, just internally. It doesn't give me any advantage over someone carrying around a big DSLR at all. So that just comes down to personal preference, I guess. One of my favourite photographers, Harry Gruyard, uses a big camera, and other photographers use small point and shoot type cameras. He also asks, what do you want consumers of your art to walk away with after reviewing and experiencing your images? I just want them to, I would like them to have felt something, essentially. Whether they liked it or disliked it, that's fine. This is Elliot Irwitt that said something like this, but, they wanted them to have some sort of reaction. And I guess when I look at pictures, I like having more questions about the picture rather than feeling like I was told a story. So maybe that. But plenty of times people have found a story in a picture and said that they saw a story and appreciated how those things sort of told a story within the one frame, and I did not see any of that at all. But I'm happy that if someone appreciates it, whatever message they get from it. That sounds like a cop-out, doesn't it? Alright, still fresh out of focus. If you ask for a street portrait and then have the ability to sell that photo as a print, would you, even though you didn't get a model release? I don't think I would sell it as a print, because I don't think that there's much of a market for that type of thing. So I just would generally avoid it, selling like an individual print of a portrait of somebody. But if I wanted to, I would put it in a book if it fitted in there. So I'm a little bit hypocritical in that sense, I guess. If you ask for a street portrait and then have the ability to sell that photo as a print, yeah, I think I don't see why. Yeah, I think I would not sell it as an individual print. I might include it in a book or something like that. But if it was like, I guess it's not a portrait if it's not of their face, but if it was like a street photo that was that didn't have the person super recognizable in it, and it was something that someone wanted as art, then yeah, maybe I would sell it. I don't know. Do you feel that street photography requires people in the frame? Not at all. Some of my favorite photographers who are considered street photographers did not always have people in the frame, but I do think that in general, to be considered a street photographer, at least a decent amount of your work should probably be candid pictures of people in public places. Probably. I don't know. I sound like I'm always like, I don't know. What do I know? Why should sound a bit more? That's how I think. That is it. It's okay if other people think otherwise. Okay, then the last question from Fresh Out of Focus was, street photography this is a hypothetical. Street photography is deemed illegal tomorrow unless you pay for a permit, take a state-sponsored ethics course. What is your next move? I would pay for the permit and take the state-sponsored ethics course because I want to keep shooting the way that I like to shoot legally. If I couldn't afford that or anything, I would probably find situations or events or something like that, and I would just go in and ask if I can photograph them candidly while they continue doing what they're doing. That was something that William Albert Allard, who shot for National Geographic, did that. He would kind of make his way in, talk to people, get the access and the acceptance, and then continue to shoot them. He also did portraits and stuff, but I'm talking more about street style stuff. So I guess it wouldn't necessarily be street exactly then, it would be closer to documentary, but you get what I mean. You know what I mean? Like if you've seen the cowboy pictures that I had, they were doing some sort of performance downtown in Denver, We walked up to them. I was taking pictures as I walked up, but then we just said, can we just hang around and photograph you guys for a while? And they just pretty much performed in front of us and messed around and had some banter, and we photographed while that happened, and it was great. So yeah, that kind of thing would be my next move. Ben Kremen asks, what motivates you to take street photography photos? I'm interested in the why. Ben, this is a deep question and very hard for me to articulate an answer to this, but I am a simple person. So my why is, first of all, it was because I lived in Philadelphia and that was the easiest thing around me to have access to taking photos. Like, it was just, street photography was the closest accessible thing. And secondly, it's, to me, just the most interesting type of photography. I think good street photography is one of the most difficult and elusive things to achieve, especially if you want to achieve your own style. And when you do achieve it, I think it's the most interesting type of photography to look at. It might not be the most commercially viable, but it's super interesting. And, you know, ultimately, if I'm being honest, I would like to be a famous photographer. And that's I think that's okay. But I think I would also just do this for the love of it as well. And you know, maybe I would have a better chance of becoming a famous photographer by sticking with something more commercially viable, because, you know, clients and sales and social media and all that stuff might be a bit easier, and street photography is a niche, but I like this niche. And I like looking back at old pictures. You know, you see some stuff by Jeff Mermelstein in New York in the 90s, and it looks a little different, and it's really cool. So there's sort of aspect of that as well. There's that sort of documentation of the time that you live in and the way that you see it. And even though it's massively popular just now, it's still very difficult to do well. Not saying that I do it well, but maybe I'll get there after several years of doing it. Does that answer the why? Selfish reasons, basically. Okay, Indra Karmawan, how to master zone focusing in street. I started it by using the distance scale inside my Fujifilm camera, and it would sort of show me on this blue bar. If I was at f8 or f11, this blue bar would get bigger and tell me that everything from 6 feet to infinity was in focus. If I was, set the camera to like 10 feet and then basically just use it as a point and shoot from there. And if something was much closer to me, I would then just pull the focusing ring like an inch or so back, and it would pull the focus to about 3 feet or 4 feet. And generally everything would be in focus as well. And I just didn't worry too much if my intended subject was slightly out of focus. And it just seemed to work for me. It gave me less stuff to think about at the same time, and I don't have a brain that can process things very quickly, so that just helped me. And then when I moved on to a full frame camera, it was just the similar distance scale, but the distance scale is on the top of the lens here, and I just know that if at f8 and f11, I can have it, right about there, and most things are in focus, and if something comes within 6 feet of me, I just pull my finger back to about there, and I usually get it in focus. It becomes different when you're using less than f8. It starts to become more difficult because there's much smaller range and focus, and at that point, sometimes I'm using the rangefinder patch to figure out what I need to focus on. And other than that, it's just practice. Like, you just try it a whole bunch, and it might work for you, it might not, and there's absolutely no shame in using autofocus if that's what works for you. Many of the best photographers in the world use autofocus, not zone focus. Harry Gruyar, for one of them, uses Canon 5D. I think Martin Parr I think uses autofocus, and the camera is basically in auto mode entirely for his stuff. Georgy Pinkasov autofocuses. Many people do, so it's not it's not the mark of a proper photographer to use zone focus. But if you want to learn how to use it and you feel like it is good for you, just keep practicing. Focus on things in your house, and then go out and try and apply that when you're shooting in the street as well. And yeah, a little bit of time. Eventually you'll get it. I've been doing it since the start of 2020, and I'm getting half decent at it now. I just need to learn how to do it at shallower apertures. All right. I think that might be all of the hopefully that helped, Indra, and hopefully you can master it if you really want to. Okay. That is all the questions. I did that in less than half an hour this time. My first take was over an hour. So that's nice. All right. That's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Drop me a comment down below. Maybe I need to clarify some stuff. So let me know if I do. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.